Good evening. I'm David Early, and I want to welcome you this evening to our open house to talk about election system changes here in the city of Sunnyvale. This is, as you know, it's an open house. You are welcome to stay here for the whole evening, but certainly not required. We started with a little soft opening at 6 o'clock. I'm going to give a presentation now for what we anticipate will be about 15 minutes. We have boards up in the room, and you are welcome. We encourage you to get up and come over and look at them and ask us questions about them. We have staff members who will be deployed at each of these locations, and we really want you to have a chance to look at those. Before I get into my presentation, I want to mention that we do have translation here because this is such an important situation and it's really about ethnic diversity. We have translation into 3 languages, and I want to ask each of our interpreters to come up and announce that that interpretation is available so that folks know. So first we have Clara, who's going to be doing Spanish this evening.
Muy buenas tardes, yo estoy aquí para interpretarles en español. Si necesitan los aparatos, estamos ubicados ahí atrás. Gracias.
Okay. Then we have Ginger, who will be doing Mandarin Chinese. And finally, we have Mandeep, who will be doing Hindi translation. All right, thank you all. And all 3 of them will also be available to tour people around the boards in the native languages as well. Before I move on to any other parts of the evening, I also do want to introduce key people who are here. Again, my name is David Early. I'm actually a consultant to the city of Sunnyvale. My firm is called Placeworks, and we're helping with the outreach about this process. Carrie Stone, who's over on the far side, is the project manager for our office, and Lindsay Klein and Nando Jimenez is here somewhere. He's out shepherding people in. So 4 of us are here. There are a number of representatives from the city as well. Vice Mayor Russ Melton is here this evening. Yep. We anticipate Mayor Larry Klein, although I don't believe he's here yet. But we do have key city staff. City Manager Kent Steffens is here. Deputy City Manager Jackie Guzman, who's our project manager at the city level, as well as the communications officer for the city, Jennifer Garnett, is here as well. So we've got lots of city staff representatives also. So welcome again. Thank you for being here. I'm going to give a brief presentation to go over the 7 items that you see listed here. We're going to talk about why the city might be looking at this change. We're going to talk about how the existing electoral system works. Talk about the California Voting Rights Act, also known as the CVRA. We'll be talking a little bit about demographics here in the city of Sunnyvale. We'll talk about the process for this project as we reach out to people to talk about this possible change. And then I'll introduce the open house stations and some of the other background materials that we have. And then we'll break. It'll only take about 15 minutes to do this presentation. And then you can ask any other questions you have. You're welcome to stay again. I'm going to give exactly the same presentation again in about an hour. And we will be doing this, repeating all of this again on Saturday of this week as well. So there's lots of opportunities to get this same information. And at the same time, unless you really have a good time tonight, there's no need to come back again on Saturday because it will be exactly the same, and I don't want to disappoint you. So why would we look at changing Sunnyvale's existing electoral system? Sunnyvale's system is what's called an at-large system. Everyone who votes in Sunnyvale votes for all of the city council seats. Those seats are numbered, but if you're a voter, you get to vote for seats 1, 2, 3, and 4 in one election, and then 2 years later, you vote for seats 5, 6, and 7. You vote for all of them. So they are at-large, representing the entire city. This kind of at-large voting system is now, under California state law, the subject of legal complaints and even lawsuits that result from a law passed earlier this decade, I believe it was 2012, called the California Voting Rights Act. And it stated that in a situation where you have ethnic diversity in a city, and if that city has a city council that is not ethnically representative of the rest of the city makeup, then it is presumed that there could be something wrong with the system, and that it is presumed that the answer to that problem is to break the city into council districts. So that's all written into the law. People may disagree with those presumptions, but that's all part of the law, and the law says that a remedy to this situation would be to break the city into districts to elect individual city council members. So the city city of Sunnyvale does have such a system of at-large representation. The city has become aware over the last several years that many cities in California have made a change to district-wide elections. Right next door, the city of Santa Clara, which has had a very similar system, was subject to a lawsuit and lost that. And in fact, no city in California has won any challenge to try and avoid a switch to district elections. So because the city was aware of that, even early in about the middle of 2018, the city council already started a process to think about a change. And then sure enough, in October of 2018, the city did receive a formal legal complaint stating that a CVRA violation may be occurring here in Sunnyvale. And that further made the city need to move forward with this process. So again, no city has ever won a CVRA lawsuit. The court decisions in a lawsuit, if you go to court and the judge rules against you, the judge can actually take away the city's ability to do its own districting. They put a very tight timeline on, and they can even decide on what the district should be. And the city doesn't want to do that. And of course, litigation is also very expensive, literally in the millions of dollars. Cities who lose these lawsuits have to pay their own legal fees and also the legal fees of the party that brought the suit, and those amount to multiple millions, often $1, $2, even $4 or $6 million totally. So because of all of that, and because the city did receive this letter alleging CVR violations, the city council is now studying a possible transition to district elections. So the existing council system is one in which there are 7 numbered seats. A council term is 4 years, and the seats are staggered. So every 2 years, you elect 4. 2 years later, you elect 3. 2 years after that, those first 4 come up, and so on. But they're all citywide. Although they're numbered, they're a citywide situation. The mayor is then elected by the council from within those 7 people. So you as a voter don't vote directly for the mayor of Sunnyvale. You vote for the 7 city council members, and the 7 city council members choose one of their number to be the mayor, and that's for a 2-year term. And then after the next council election, at the end of those 2 years, a new mayor is elected from within the council. So that's the existing system. Under the CVRA, that system, as I said, can be found to lead to what's called racially polarized voting. The CVRA prohibits voting systems that dilute the votes of minority populations, and it prohibits at-large elections if it's found that those at-large elections could be resulting in certain groups of people not being able to elect their own numbers. It doesn't actually matter if it's possible, for instance, to create a city council district that has a majority of minority voters. That's not an issue. It's just if you have a council that is primarily non-minority in a city that has large amounts of minorities, then the law presumes that there's a problem. And the law includes this thing called a safe harbor that says if you switch to district-based elections, then you're presumed to have solved the problem. It doesn't actually matter if the problem over time does get solved. I don't mean to be cynical about it, but there's not a further test. It just says, we presume if you make this switch that you will have solved the problem. So that's where we are today with this set of issues. So again, you only need to prove that there is racially polarized voting. It doesn't matter whether the protected class actually forms the majority of the voters. It doesn't matter if there was an intention to be discriminatory. It doesn't matter if there's been a history of discrimination. It's just if you can show that the city has one ethnic makeup and the council has a different ethnic makeup, then there's presumed to be racially polarized voting, and there is a problem. And so because of that, since 2002, when the cases really started, at least 60 cities in California, out of a total of about 550, 60 cities have changed from a district-based election system, from an at-large system to a district-based system. So Sunnyvale is in fact a city with a great racial diversity, as I assume you all know. It is true that non-Hispanic whites make up the largest segment of the population, but it's actually a little less than the majority. It's about 48% according to the current census data. In addition to that, Asian groups, and under the law, all Asian groups are grouped together. They make up almost exactly a third, 33.3%. So that includes Chinese and Indians, who are the greatest 2 numbers within those. It also includes Filipinos, Vietnamese, Koreans, and all other folks of Asian origin. In addition to that, we have 13.9, almost 14% Latino voters, people in this chart, residents, are about 14% are Hispanic or Latino, and then much smaller numbers of blacks, Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, and those who designate themselves as other within the census. So they make up a total of about 5% of the total population, all those groups together. But again, the Asian population and the Latino populations are large enough that they warrant attention under the California Voting Rights Act. I might mention, and I'll talk about this booth, the displays in a minute, but one of the displays over there actually looks at some of those populations in various parts of the city. So you can see that there is variation from one area to another, where there are more or less of various ethnic groups living in various parts of the city. So the city council has very, I think with a lot of forethought, embarked on a process to really give this some study. The good news here is that we just had a council election in November of 2018. The next election would not normally occur until November of 2020. And so there's plenty of time to think about this process. There are potential plaintiffs who have filed a letter of complaint, and those plaintiffs have also shown an interest in really working with the city and trying to do a process that will be maximally inclusive as long as the process continues to move forward. So we've got some time, and the council is using that time to really do a lot of outreach about this. So right now we're in phase 1 of the process, and we anticipate that it'll run through the middle of this year, through June, and we're right at the beginning of that. So right now we're working to educate community members about the CVRA, about these issues of racially polarized voting, about what some of the options are, and to talk about existing demographics and other issues. That education process will lead into getting input from all of you on things like, should we go to a remedy of district elections? Is there a will to do that? How do we move forward in a charter vote? When should the charter vote occur? How would the mayor be elected under a changed system? Those are all things we want to get input about. And we anticipate that that'll happen up through June. And then we anticipate moving into a phase 2 where the council will make a preliminary decision as to what to do, probably about the middle of the year. And then starting in July, we'll be in a position to actually work with the members of the public to develop maps of districts, if that's how we're going to move forward, so that we actually have a public process to work together to develop the best possible district election maps. That can happen in the second half of 2019 and still be well in time to do both a vote on the city charter as well as the actual election in the 2 elections that happened in 2020, in March of 2020 and November of 2020. So that's the overall process. We are doing a process that's intended to engage the entire community and all demographic groups. We're working very diligently to use all types of media, all types of social media, to reach out to a wide variety of people in the community. We're doing outreach at places of worship, in low-income neighborhoods, at ethnic events. We're going particularly to the religious organizations that really serve the ethnic groups that are here in the city. We're trying to reach out as much as possible to make sure that we get every group represented through ethnic media and otherwise. We do have translation of written materials, interpretation of the words that are spoken available at all the meetings, and we're also offering childcare and food at meetings to try and bring in as many people as we possibly can. So it really is intended to be a very broad range of people. Did you know there's childcare next door? You don't want to be there. Yeah, I think it's right next door, but this is more fun, right? You'd rather learn about voting. That's what I thought, yeah. Okay, so the city is also in the process of appointing a citizens advisory committee. There was a process to reach out to the entire city and to look for candidates to join that CAC, as we call it, the Citizens Advisory Committee. The council got 22 applications and is just about ready to appoint a committee of 9 people who will oversee the process that we're engaged in. They will be meeting in public meetings at regular times to serve as ambassadors and merely make sure that the project has proper oversight by community members. And the CAC has been chosen to represent the geographic, ethnic, and social diversity of the city as a whole so that we really have an overview. I know some of the folks who are on the possible agenda to be appointed by the City Council are actually here this evening to be in touch with how this event is working. So we do have a very extensive website for the project. Not up and running yet, right? But it is up, good, and it will be augmented as we move forward. I know March 1st we're rolling out some other information, but not right now. You can already go to sunnyvaleelections.org and you can get information all about this process, about the upcoming meetings, and really look at background documents, get links to the law, the CVRA, and other important information. So all sorts of things are there. You can join our mailing list. You will, and starting in March, you'll be able to leave comments. You'll be able to engage in exercises to, for instance, look at your community of interest and where you think that is as we think about where districts might be mapped. So there's a lot of different things on that website, and there will be more, so feel free to take a look at that. And we do have a survey that we've handed out this evening and that we hope you'll be able to fill out this evening. It is, of course, voluntary, but there's a couple of points of it. One is that, as you'll see at one of the boards, one of the key questions that's facing the City Council right away is to figure out when an election about the charter amendment would occur. Should that charter amendment election occur in March of 2020, then presumably allowing a new council situation, a new district system to go into effect in November of 2020, or would it be better to actually wait to do the charter amendment election until November 2020, which would actually probably delay the first district election until 2022. So the council needs to make that decision relatively soon and is looking for input on that. So we have our questionnaire. We want to know first, how did you hear about tonight's meeting? Because we want to make sure our outreach is being effective. Then we want to ask you, do you prefer that charter amendment election in March or November? And then we have a demographic survey as well. And the reason for that demographic survey, although it is voluntary, is that the council is very committed to making sure that we engage a wide variety of folks from Sunnyvale, and we can't know if we've been successful if we don't know who's been here. And that's why we're asking you to give us some personal information so we can understand whether we're doing a good enough job or not. And I hope that's understandable. So that's what this handout is like. We're going to ask you as you leave if you have turned one in and try and get one from you. You're welcome to say no, but we also don't want you to forget to turn it in. So we will see if we can collect them. So tonight we do have a series of 6 open house stations, 6 boards over here. They are available for tours in English as well as Chinese, Hindi, and Spanish. So if you want to get a tour and learn about the information in a language other than English, just speak to one of the interpreters and they'll walk you through. We do have boards about the California Voting Rights Act. We have one about how the council system might be changed. We have one that talks about some of the options in terms of both how to make districts and how we might in the future elect a mayor. We have a board that explains some information about other election systems, which many people are very interested in. Unfortunately, from what we understand about the law, they're not really alternatives that could work under the law, but they are systems that there's a lot of interest in. So we're talking about those tonight also. Those include cumulative voting and ranked choice voting. So if you want to know about those, you can go to Station 4. We have a board, as I mentioned, that looks at the demographics in Sunnyvale and does even look at demographics within various parts of the city geographically, so you can get an understanding of that. And then we have one final board that summarizes our 2-phase outreach process. So with that, I'm going to end my presentation now. You do have all those boards on handouts also, so you'll be able to take them home. We can take a brief amount of time now for questions and answers in the large group, but I really do want everybody to have time to really work with this material and think about it. So I want to encourage us to keep the Q&A among the large group smaller in order that you can have some time to really look at the material and ask whatever individual questions you have, and maybe to talk about it with some of your neighbors and fellow residents as well. So with that said, let me ask if there are any questions that people want to ask right now. Please.
Is the survey and other slides and station material put on the website?
Yes. Yes.
How seriously do you take tonight's survey? Because when people hear about something for the first time, the tendency is to procrastinate. And what is the cost of delaying the election?
Let me just say that your question was, first you asked whether materials were available on the web, and I said yes, they are. And then just now your second question was to ask whether this survey, and particularly the question about the March versus November election, will that be sort of binding on the council? How seriously will that be taken? And certainly that's one input, but the council is going to look at a variety of issues, and certainly the council, we have several council members here, and other council members will know that this is a small cross-section of the city of Sunnyvale, so it certainly won't be the only input as the council decides when to hold that election. The next question was, has a demographer been hired yet? I didn't mention that a demographer will be hired, a demographer being a person who understands all the trends and nuances of the population and can help to make the map of districts, assuming that that's where the city goes. A demographer will help with that. No demographer has been hired yet, but the city is in the process of making a selection at this time. Another question, please.
Yeah, is there, those cities that changed to two-district-style elections, have they actually improved their diversity?
Has the diversity of the city councils in cities with district elections been improved?
It's been a mixed bag. So some cities certainly have experienced some additional minority candidates. Others have not. So for example, Menlo Park, they changed to district elections because they, under the CVRA, there was a case made that their Latino population was not being represented. Well, they moved to district elections, created a majority Latino district, and they didn't have any Latinos actually run. But they did get 2 African Americans on their council. So they did increase the diversity on their council, but not in the way that they thought. In other cities, and we can just look at San Jose, when San Jose many years ago changed to district elections and actually had a district in East San Jose, they got their first Latino elected official. And now you can see the diversity on their board, and so it really worked for them. So it really depends.
Thanks. Other questions? Steve?
Yes. In your presentation and on the survey, the question 2 may be a little misleading. We're saying switching to district-based elections will require a majority vote of Sunnyvale electorate because we're a charter city. Maybe you can confirm this, but I believe this has been talked many times. Government Code 34886 specifically allows charter cities or any cities to go directly to district elections by simply saying we're doing this because of the California Voting Rights Act. And the second part that I'm concerned about is...
So Steve has asked about, and he knows it better than I do, Elections Codes 34886, which is the law was actually called AB 2220, Assembly Bill 2220, which did state that any city, and I will use that in quotes, any city can move to, any city seeking to fulfill the CVRA can move to district elections with only a vote of the city council. However, the legislative analysis for AB 2220 actually told the legislators who were voting on it that city charters would still trump this new law. And that's written in not to the law itself, but into the legislative analysis of the law. The law doesn't actually say this includes all charter cities. It just says any city may do it. The city of Sunnyvale's charter actually very specifically lays out how elections are to occur, and I believe it even says that this can only be changed through a charter amendment, and because of that there is some legal doubt, and it's never been tested, as to whether AB 2220 actually applies to a charter city like Sunnyvale or not. There are certainly many experts who think it does apply, and hence the council could do this on its own. But there are other experts who believe that the city would be better off to go ahead and do a charter election because there are some nuances and unclarities about AB 2220.
Yeah. So I agree with you. It's a little ambiguous, but charter cities have decided to go with the council themselves, not to challenge it.
There are charter cities that have gone to a change without a charter amendment, but it's the opinion of Sunnyvale City Attorney that Sunnyvale's charter is such that AB 2220 might not apply, even though it did apply to other charter cities. And that's because of some of the nuances in the way the law was written.
Okay, and the second part of the question is, you're asking for our opinion whether, if it's cleaner for us to do a charter vote, whether you're asking our opinion whether it's March 2020 or November 2020. But it seems very clear that if we don't do it in March 2020, we're going to be immediately slapped with a legal suit. In fact, we may be slapped with a legal suit sometime in February if we haven't executed it in 90 days. So do we really have a choice, or is it we're driving toward March 2020 to stay lined up legally?
Let me just say that is a very valid opinion. But it's still an opinion. And we believe that there may be people in this room or elsewhere who, for other reasons, still feel that a November 2020 charter vote might be appropriate. So, Steve, I think from your opinion, I'm guessing that you're going to tick the mark on the survey that says March 2020, but others may disagree, and they may have other reasons to say November 2020. You are absolutely right that the council needs to look at this issue very soon because of the timeline of the possible legal suit, and there would be some risk if the city soon says we're going to wait till November 2020. There are certainly many people who believe that that would increase the legal risk for the city. Sir.
The March date makes sense to me for the reasons you just discussed. The only question I have about that has to do with turnout. I assume historically turnout has been lower in primary than in general elections. I assume that we're anticipating that the history might not apply this year because of the change in date of the primary. Has anybody tried to make an estimate of what the 2020 primary turnout might be compared to the November 2020 turnout?
I am not, so the question is, has anyone tried to do an estimate of turnout in March 2020 versus November 2020? Let me say first that those of you who who keep score only as well as I do, we're actually changing our primary election from June to March, and 2020 will be the first time that happened. I didn't know that, but I've learned that through this process. Right, and so that means that California will no longer be at the tail end of the presidential nominating process. It will be early in the presidential nominating process, which makes some people think that turnout will go up. Turnout in June primaries has actually always been a June presidential primary has still had a higher turnout than an off-year election or an odd-numbered year election, but never as high as November. That said, I mean, I hate to say it, there are many people in California who don't think they should bother to vote for president in November because California, we all know California is going to vote Democratic. Why bother? So you can slice this any way. I don't know of any authoritative study as to how voting may increase from having gone from June to March. I think everybody agrees that November will still be the bigger number, March will be a smaller number, but it's not remarkably smaller, and it's better than a midterm election, and it's also better than just a local election.
The only reason I even asked whether there might be an estimate, I realize this is pretty early to be doing it. Somebody at some point figures out how many ballots to print. So somebody does make an estimate at some point. Yeah. I realize it's a little early. Yeah.
Let's take questions that we haven't had a person from, then we'll come back. Sure.
Yes, I have a question about the other election systems.
Yes.
So you said that ranked choice voting and cumulative voting were not seriously considered as remedies for the CVRA. But I'm a little surprised because we know that cumulative voting has been used before and it worked.
No.
In a lawsuit, yes, in the Mission.
Well, you can go to the station and learn more about that. Let me say quickly, so there have been two cities, Mission Viejo and Santa Clarita, that have both promised to go to cumulative voting as a remedy. But there are several important points to understand about that. Number one, they had to get the agreement of the plaintiffs to let go of their lawsuits, and we have no indication that here the potential plaintiffs would do the same. So that's the first point. Secondly, even though those plaintiffs have dropped their cases, They are not, those two cities are not under the safe harbor because they didn't go to district elections, so they could still be sued by someone else, even though they're doing the cumulative election. But there are two more very important points. The third point is that since those two cities have agreed to go to cumulative voting, the Secretary of State of the state of California has been studying cumulative voting and has now issued a legal opinion stating that cumulative voting is actually contrary to the Constitution of the state of California and cannot be implemented. And they have sent letters, the Secretary of State's office, or the Attorney General. The Attorney General has sent letters to those two cities and told them that they should not implement cumulative voting, even though they promised to, because it's opposed to state law. And number 4, it is technologically impossible for the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters to implement a cumulative voting system. So even if it were legally desirable or politically desirable and legally possible, there's just not the technology, at least not in 2020, to do it.
The voting system. The other one is the RankChoice Voting.
Right.
And this has been implemented elsewhere. You know
Yes.
that the mayor of San Francisco
Right.
has been the first African American woman
Right.
has been elected by RankChoice, and it has proven that it's very representative of people's opinions. And it just hasn't been tried, right, as a remedy yet. But why not combine it, use that, and combine it with districts? For instance, a district-based election. And I know that the Santa Clara County Register of Voters may not have the equipment as of now, but I know that they're working on it, that's for sure.
Right.
They've been for a long time now, since it's been approved by the county as a whole in 1998, RankChoice Voting.
Right.
So they have time, I mean, 20 years ago, so they've been thinking about it.
Right.
And it could be ready by 2024.
So ranked choice voting is certainly an option, but as you said, ranked choice voting actually only makes sense when it's part of a district system. Ranked choice voting doesn't work. Well,
In that case, it could work.
ranked choice voting only works when there's a single candidate. So that's the definition of ranked choice voting.
No. There are two cases. You have multi-seats and you have single seats. So instant runoff is for a single seat, right? And it works also very well in multiple seat, elections with multiple seats, right? This has been used before, right? Oakland has been using, Alameda County has been using it, and it's proven to be very efficient.
Right. My understanding is it's been used pretty much exclusively in single seat elections, and that when it goes to a multiple seat election, it actually is cumulative voting. But ranked choice voting, but you're absolutely right, there is an option to go to both district elections with ranked choice voting. The city could do that. The guidance we have from the city council so far is to keep this as simple a question as possible. That is, should we go to districts or not? Later, the city might, and particularly when the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters has the technology available, the city could separately consider going to ranked choice voting. But so far, at least, the guidance we have is that given that in a ranked choice system we would also be looking at districts, let's just keep it at that question about going to districts and look at ranked choice voting at another time if we're going to do that. So that's why it's not under further scrutiny right now.
Is there an email address that people can send it?
Yes, so you can go to our website. So the question is how to provide additional input to the CAC or otherwise. You can go to the website. There's a place to submit comments there. And we will be running, in March and April, we'll be running lots more meetings. There will be 3 more community-wide meetings. And there will be 10 pop-up events that happen at places of worship and other community events, particularly oriented to make sure that we pick up people who might not have time to come to a public meeting. So all of those are ways to give input at any of those meetings or via the web, via email, or on our website. So any of those are available. Okay, so with that, let's break up this larger group. You can go around and ask any questions you have. We have staff at each of the boards.